Hello, hello. My name is Linda, also known as Tortajala around the internet. I love creative journaling and all things stationery. And today I just want to do a casual fountain pen chit chat. Basically, an update of what I'm thinking and doing around my fountain pen journey. I know that people usually do currently inked monthlies, but because I'm in this like exploratory beginner stage, all of my fountain pens are inked up. I have definitely fallen down the rabbit hole, but I still consider myself a beginner in the exploratory phase. Even though, like, I've known about fountain pens and I've used fountain pens actually for years, but like a very casual user. I bought a Pilot Metropolitan in 2017 and I didn't really have great control because the nib was actually so smooth. I found myself feeling like I was slipping and sliding on the page. It took some time to learn how to write like semi-legibly with it. And it wasn't until 2019 when I journaled daily in my Hobonichi that it became a habit. But I just used my Pilot Metropolitan every single day in a daily journal for the whole year, and I only used cartridges. So it really did take me a while to expand and explore more, mostly because I knew it would be a slippery slope and maybe I unconsciously knew that I was like not ready, like in, my stage of life kind of thing. But everything exploded basically exponentially after I bought the Diamine Inkvent calendar in December 2024. So, with more inks, it led me to want more pens, and it just went into this whole like discovery exploratory phase, watching all the videos, following all the people, um, all the things. And that's where I am now. And if you saw my previous videos that I labeled as currently inked, they really are just me logging every single fountain pen that I have and what ink I have in them so that I could have something to reference. I only have budget fountain pens, uh, and I suppose because they are so economical, that's why it's easy to accumulate so many. To be honest, I really don't know how I feel about that. I'm very ambivalent about the whole thing because obviously it feels a little weird. Like, the whole point of a fountain pen is that you use like a couple pens, right? Or one pen because you can refill the ink. You don't have to keep buying stuff and create like more trash or whatever. Um, but if you're buying a new pen all the time, that doesn't really um, go with the whole idea, especially if you keep going up like the quality tier and fountain pens can get very, very expensive. So I don't know, maybe it's because right now everything is new to me. So I'm much more open to getting like a new pen and trying it out because it's inexpensive, it's not a huge investment, and I want to learn like what do I like, what do I not like. Um, so maybe it's just a phase that I'm in. If you're a seasoned like fountain pen user, maybe you can comment below and put in your 2 cents because I do wonder, like seasoned users out there, I'm curious, like maybe you're not that enticed by like the budget pens because you probably have really good pens that work for you now. And you know your tastes, your likes and dislikes. So perhaps it's easier for you to like not be enticed by all those like flashy budget pens. Um, and of course, you probably have a wish list of higher tiered pens, but they're a big investment, so you're not going to be buying a pen every day. So that's my thought, anyways. Maybe one day I will get to that level. But yeah, I don't know. Um, right now, I don't even have a fountain pen that costs like $100. I know it sounds weird, but my TWSBI Eco, I think, is the most expensive pen. I have the cream and rose, like the special edition, and here in Europe they cost 60 euro. So it definitely costs more than in the US, but yeah, I think that's my most expensive pen because everything else is like just budget, entry level or like Chinese pen, and yeah, they just cost way less. So I'm not even in like that. I think what other people might still consider like entry level, even if you got like $100 to $200 pen. So I don't know. I often do wonder, will I feel the difference if I had an expensive pen? Will I even know? Will I be benefiting from the investment or not? So, yeah, I'm just in this learning stage still, and I sort of want to feel like I get to a point where I feel like I'm sort of ready, maybe to graduate and appreciate a more expensive pen. And I also sometimes have a hard time deciding. So if something costs more, then I'm like considering so many things that I don't know what to pick. You know what I mean? As like the first expensive pen. So we will see what happens. Um, but this is the first time I'm doing this kind of fountain pen chit chat video. So it will be a little choppy because I'm going to stitch together different things that I recorded at different times before I knew I was going to make a video like this. Basically, let me first show you all the new acquisitions to my pen collection since the last time I made a fountain pen video. Again, these are all budget pens, so um, just going to add them to my list of inked pens. So let's jump into that. So today I wanted to share a couple more fountain pens that I have added to my list. And I am realizing this is getting to be a monthly thing, even though I'm not doing what people usually do when they're currently inked, which is picking like a handful of pens and inking them up each month. Rather, I'm just checking in because I started this to note what pens I have and what ink is in them so that I have this like easy reference and sort of like a log. But I'm realizing that it's not really working out because, of course, I have so many pens. If you've watched my previous videos, and I've already re-inked some of them, so I'm realizing I need to add it back in if I re-inked it. But I sort of don't like the fact that it's not a count of like all the pens I have. So if I re-ink it, do I add it back to this list or do I need a different section? I don't know. My notebook's gonna get messy, I guess. It's gonna get disorganized pretty fast. And from watching other people's currently inks, now I realize why people have like different lists and like cross referencing things because sometimes you just want to look things up in a different way. Maybe this is also a sign that I have too many pens for my brain to um, wrap itself around because it's certainly not easy to keep track of everything. Um, and of course, the more pens you have, the less time you're sort of like using, each one, right? Although I do switch up my pens because if, like, I have certain ones that I definitely use more, but for my morning pages, I just pick a different pen every day so that I sort of cycle through them. So let me know down in the comments if you have suggestions as a more seasoned fountain pen and ink user, like how to set up like a proper ink journal or ink log, because I definitely am just getting into this. It was very much just spurred on by the fact that I bought the Diamine Inkvent calendar in December 2024. So with all of those inks, it like led me down the rabbit hole of getting more pens and just like trying everything out. But for today, let me show you just a couple of pens I have to add to my list. So these are new pens. This is the Jinhao X159, and if you watch my previous videos, you'll know that I already have one of these. I have the brown colored X159 in a fine nib. So this is the cream colored in a medium nib because I do like the feel of this pen, like the size, and I wanted to try it with the medium nib. So I have this one inked up with Diamine Tundra, and I think that having these two pens that sort of like scratch that itch of like having a coffee pen kind of things, like because I have like the coffee brown one and this sort of ivory cream one, and they just go together next to each other as well, and I can test things out. So in general, I've definitely been switching around and using like slim pens, chubby pens, and like just trying to find the sweet spot. Like I want to just get a better idea of what my ideal would be in terms of like the size of the pen. And generally, I do like chunky pens, but for example, I did try the Jinhao Dadao 9019. but that's like a bit too chunky, really, really chunky, as you can see. But of course, I had to try it. And that leads me to the second pen I'm adding, which is a Jinhao 9016. So it's like the same line, but it's just slightly smaller. So if you put it next to the X159, it actually seems a little slimmer. So I don't have any special tools for like measuring the diameter and stuff of these things, but I think you can just see them if they're next to each other that the 9016 is just like slightly slimmer than the X159, but basically it's like the slimmer version of the 9019. And I also bought this in a medium nib, and I have it inked up with Diamine Good Tidings. And I realized because like Jinhao pens, obviously they're very inexpensive. Obviously, there's going to be like less quality and control or something. But oh my God, I hit the jackpot because this one, it is so smooth. Like, you really can feel the difference because when you have all these pens and you can just switch from like one to the next, you can really feel the difference. And I was like, oh my gosh, this pen, it's like another medium nib, but it just writes really, really nice as compared to like the X 159, which is also a medium nib. And it writes fine, but just not as like smooth butter as this one. So very cool. And the special thing about this 9016 pen is that it has the same giant converter as the 9019. So it has much more ink capacity than like normal, converter pens. Like I can open up both of these pens so you can see like X159 has like regular size converter, and the 9016 has the giant one, which you can see in the clear version of the 9019. So it just has more ink capacity. But the pen is a slimmer size, so definitely better for my hand, and it's also a medium nib. Too bad Jinhao doesn't make like more nib options, at least not at this time. I do have a Fude nib, but I don't see them offering like broad, double broad, or any other kind of like special nib type, because that would be definitely really fun to play with. I love having just all the variety to try out. Finally, I also have a bunch of these pens. They are super cheap, like $2. I mean, I ordered them a while ago, but yeah, it's a very cheap pen. They like probably cost less than, the fancy, like gel pens that you buy today. And it already comes with a converter inside. So really, it's a steal. This is the Duke 209. And I actually found these from the past because I had them in a different place. I bought these for sketching. They all have Fude bent nibs. And since it's a super inexpensive pen, I'm not anxious to use it with like India ink or pigment inks, like weird stuff. But of course, they don't last forever. I actually had one inked up, but half the nib just like tore apart, so I had threw it away already, which I now realize is a mistake because even if a pen breaks, you should keep it for parts. You never know when you need like one little part in the future, so that is a note to myself for that. But I got two of these and I have inked them up with my Kakimori pigment inks. I have Po and Koton. So Koton is the black colored pigment ink, and then Po is the red color. And since these are pigment inks and I don't know like what they're going to do to a pen, and I also know myself that I am not that diligent in cleaning my pens, sorry to say, so I thought it would be better to use pigment inks in like cheap pens for sketching purposes. I do want to get into like the architectural urban kind of sketching, so I think these will be nice for that. And I have tape on this one because the pens obviously look the same, so the watermelon washi is to tell me that it's the one with red ink. So these are the new additions to my list of pens and what they're inked with. And again, I realized that I need some way to signify that I'm re-inking a pen. Like, do I just add it in as usual? But then I won't be able to like count up how many entries I have and know how many like pens there are, if that makes sense. Not that that's completely necessary. Um, or maybe I just have to think of a different way to signify when I'm re-inking a pen instead of adding a new pen to this list. I did see on YouTube Simone where she had like a log where she just like date stamped and then like wrote the pen and the ink, so it's like a much more detailed like log. I realized that I didn't even write the date on these. I'm just like adding to the list because originally I was just wanting to use it for reference of like, oh yeah, that pen has that ink, you know? But obviously things change over time, so this is going to get, messy and crazy. I'm unsure how I want to move forward, so I will have to think about that and share again later. But I am realizing that it's really hard to stop buying pens to play around with, even though I already have so many. But like, it's just fun, you know. If you're watching this video, you probably understand. Um, but yeah, maybe it is getting a little out of hand, and it made me think now. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I do have pilot parallels. So I will probably do a video sharing some like pilot parallel play, but those are like obviously very different kinds of pens. And right now I have like all of the pilot cartridges with them, so they're sort of crazy colors that I'm not really um, drawn to, but I do want to use them. But yeah, so these are the new additions, and let me know if you have a better setup or idea for like logging fountain pens and inks. I will definitely have to think about it more and decide what to do. Hello, and now I'm back to add yet another pen. I do realize the irony of me trying to control my stationery spending, yet I am also still acquiring things. And I guess I should say I'm not in like the no spend camp. I just think that we just have to spend with intention, and obviously everyone's budgets are different, so you do what you want with your fun money. But yeah, I'm not trying to influence you to buy anything when I share my latest acquisition. It's really just because I want to share my journey and my thoughts, and obviously just chit chat about fountain pens and stationery because that is my hobby. So I did think about this purchase for a long time. It wasn't really an impulse buy. Um, I wanted to try more pocket pens to see what would work as my everyday carry. And I guess I've just fallen into the economical trap because this is the Hongdian M2. It is an aluminum pocket pen and it costs like $14. So it's not a huge investment. And I realize that is sort of part of the problem because when something is so economical, it's just really easy to purchase it or to make the decision to purchase it because it's not a big ticket item. But you've probably seen this pen like all over the place because a lot of people have already talked about it and it's pretty popular. And it is a metal pen, so it has some heft to it, and it already comes with a converter, so it's like ready to go. I have inked it up with Diamine Wishing Tree because it just like matches perfectly. I think I have this in, I think it's called the Army Green color, so to me, it's like a perfect match. But they only had an EF nib, so that's what I got. It's writing fine, but I think that EF is just too fine for my taste. When it comes to like a pocket pen that I'm going to be using with my everyday carry, which is the olive colored standard size traveler's notebook, I don't really need to write like super small. And more, I find myself wanting to go up in my line size just to write bigger and give myself more space. And it also allows me to like see the inks more. So I I'm really like moving away from like the fine lines and always wanting like medium or even broad or stub and just get like big, because there's no shortage of space or paper when it comes to just my like note taking. Um, so I filled this up with Diamine Wishing Tree, and I don't think I maybe like sucked up a lot of the shimmer that is in that ink, but maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I realized that when it comes to shimmer inks, if you don't want the shimmer, then just don't shake the bottle. Then you can just get the base ink color. Do some people do that? I just realized that that is sort of a cool way to like, you know, use your ink if you don't want like really much of the shimmer part. But yeah, I think that this ink and pen, they just like match perfectly. So I'm gonna try out this pen as like with my everyday carry to see how I like it. And I do already have the Kaweco Sport in the olive color, so I'm sort of like comparing it to that experience to see if this is better basically. Um, the clip in this is integrated to the pen, so it's not gonna like slip off or anything. And yeah, I also like it to be matchy matchy. That's why I got this army green color because it totally matches with like olive color TN. But yeah, I definitely have to use it for a longer time to see how it will work out. So far, it's been going well. And like I said, my only complaint is that I don't think I want an EF nib. I want it to be bigger. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that is another new pen to add to my little list here. And I think the one thing that I don't like about this pen, um, because the nib obviously you can swap and like change out easily, but I don't like the finial that has that yin yang cat design. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. It obviously does not affect the use of this fountain pen. It's just aesthetics, but yeah, I don't really like it. It's not that I hate cats or anything, but I just don't. I'm a dog person, not a cat person. So, but yeah, that is my new pen, and I also got some new ink as well, and I wanted to show you that I have swatched all of my inks on these like watercolor cards, and I know that the color might not be perfect because obviously um, it will change depending on what paper you use, but it gives me a good idea of like what inks I have and like what family of colors they fall in. So when I'm looking for an ink, I can just go through these swatch cards, and it also makes it easier to compare. I really like the loose leaf swatch cards more than having to like flip through like pages and pages and pages of a book where you've swatched, your inks. So I think that loose swatch cards like this might be better. I mean, I might put them on a ring so I don't, lose them and they're neater, but just having them um as little pieces like that just makes it easier to compare like one with another than if you have them swatched in pages of a book. So I really do like this system more, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to use or swatch in books as well. I sort of think of like playing with inks in an ink journal as like the using of the ink and the playing with it and seeing what happens and writing and testing, whereas these swatch cards are like a separate tool for referencing and seeing like all the inks that you have. So I think that they're like each type or way that you swatch your inks is like for a different purpose, if that makes sense. So yeah, most of the inks that I don't really have that many bottled inks, at least I don't think so. Most of them, like 25 of these, are from the Diamine Inkvent calendar. So I mostly have Diamine. And then I had like a handful, of other inks. And the Pelican one was a recent, acquisition because it was on sale for like $13 or something like that. So I just wanted um, another gray. I do like standard like colors as well as the shimmer stuff. I've honestly been finding like the extreme sheen and like superstar bright and all those like fancy ones, they're fun to play with, but they're really distracting. So I don't think that I would use them for actual journaling. Does that make sense? So there's a big difference between inks that you would use to like play with or do something very specific versus inks that would be like, daily writer usage kind of stuff. So definitely lots of learnings in the like ink category as well. But that is it for me this time around. That is sort of the fountain pen journey chit chat about, pens, acquisitions, inks, and what I'm doing. Upcoming, I will definitely be sharing a video about my pilot parallel play. And that was all like spurred on by watching other people's videos and Simone's videos. So that is the next thing that I will be sharing. So definitely, if you're interested, subscribe. And I would really appreciate it if you like this video, if you enjoyed. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. And until next time, bye.